Okay, folks, I started off this presentation and I think I'll just start off afresh again. Good morning. Welcome to the Dr. Kent Show. I am Dr. John Taylor Kent. I'm a retired correctional psychologist. Welcome to my humble abode here. As you can see, I like to joke and say I'm trailer trash. Well, this is the level at which I can afford to live. I'm real grateful for the retirement that I got. Got to be grateful. If you don't have an attitude of gratitude, what do you have? Not very much. I wanted to talk about the 14th Amendment, so I went and looked it up to read it, and it was much longer. There was much more there than what I realized. And then as I got into the commentary and the breakdown, and also the initial things that I was told didn't appear, I had to get into the text quite a ways and go to the breakdown, and then I could see how what I was told was true, and that was by Eustace Mullins. Now, Eustace Mullins regards the 14th and 15th Amendments as being null and void, illegal, because the South was not represented during that time. After the Civil War, the South's representatives, legislators were appointed. They didn't get to elect them. They didn't vote them. And I assume that that means for both bodies. So in other words, the senators from the states were appointed for them by the North. Okay, and the senators and the congressmen for the South were appointed by them to both bodies. So they were not able to vote on this. They didn't have representation. And as a result of that, the 14th and 15th Amendments are null and void. And that's what should be determined in a Supreme Court setting. And then thereafter, we've got the 16th Amendment forward, according to Eustace Mullins, really brilliant researcher and author from the state of Virginia. The 16th forward should be ruled null and void because they are out of order. However, I'd like to tell you that the 16th Amendment was never even voted on. That's from Stamper's book, The Fruit from a Poisonous Tree. The acting Secretary of the Treasury, Department of the Treasury, and one other bureaucrat merely announced that it had been ratified, adopted, and it had not. And so your 16th Amendment, which is your Internal Revenue Service, your tax code, really is not legal. And the 17th Amendment, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to add to what Eustace Mullins said. I claim that it's unconstitutional. And it's only common sense, because by the direct election of senators from the people, the state governments were no longer represented. And it was the state governments that were the parties to the Constitution that created this central federal beast that we have today. It's morphed out way far from what it was. And I do recommend that we have the Great Reset here in the United States of America, that we go back to the original structure our founders gave us. I mean, we peel it all back and all away and start almost from scratch. I believe that what we have to do is go back to the original 13th Amendment, and we have to implement that. And that took away, it put the attorneys in their place. The attorneys needed to be put in their place because they got us into the War of 1812. And the purpose of the 13th Amendment, although it'll talk about titles of nobility and royalty and all that, that's not what it was about. It was about the separation of powers. You see, attorneys, being officers of the court, are already members of the judiciary. And to keep the separation of powers, they're not allowed to become members of the other two branches of government. So they're not allowed to be elected to the presidency, to the executive branch, and they're not allowed to be elected to the legislative branch. And that's what the original 13th Amendment did. Unfortunately, the very next year, after 10 of the states, it only took 9 to make it the law of the land, but 10 of them voted for it. It was the law of the land, but The Congress in 1813 sat on March 4th, sat the lawyers, the attorneys, the Bar Association members in violation of the 13th Amendment. So they violated it. And then as far as the proof that it was ratified, people in New Hampshire didn't know they had ratified it until about a decade ago. Within the last 10 years, they were cleaning out the Capitol in Concord, New Hampshire, and they came across an old copy of the Constitution with the 13th Amendment, the original 13th Amendment in it, which was proof that it had been fully ratified, and nobody knew that New Hampshire had done that, by the way. Most people think that they did not, and everyone has thought that it was the state of Virginia that was the ninth vote, the determining vote, and unfortunately, those handwritten records are under lock and key in another country. I believe we should demand those back. They are our papers. The British have them under lock and key. The British have never allowed us to have independence. They've sabotaged us by their secret societies and the other crap they pulled on us. I love the people. Well, for the most part, they are kind of quirky and kind of weird. The men are pretty damn effeminate, if you ask me. I love saying that for some reason. Yeah, I know they're uptight, whatever, they've got whatever about them, and their language is a different language than ours, honestly, when you get down to it. They use the word brilliant all the time. That's brilliant. It's brilliant. They use other words in peculiar fashions as well. So, I don't know about you, but I prefer the American language over the English language. Although I majored in English, I was deficient in it. I wanted to round myself out, so I majored in English, and I did not get good grades because of that. B's were about the best I could do. I think we need to return to the roots of the nation. And by the way, I was in error, so I want to report myself immediately. I'm going to rat myself out on that. So one thing I learned from the German people, they were very rational. I was there as a little boy for 3 years. I was there when the Berlin Wall went up as well. And during the Kennedy missile crisis, I remember my mother told us, you better go outside and play. Because we were on the front line, and if there was going to be a war, they were going to roll right over us there in Heidelberg, Germany. I was mistaken. What was my mistake? I'll think about it in a little bit. I got off track thinking about things a little. I try to get this stream of consciousness going and just go through it as seamlessly as I can. Those were my best shows more than a decade ago on the radio. Every time I prepared a show, I had my papers and I'd rustle them like Rush Limbaugh would do, and you could hear those. I fell flat on my face every time. One time I was late, got there 5 minutes, and on the way I'm listening to my own voice, which I couldn't stand at the time at all. And I got in there, and he was playing one of the best shows, and I forgot. I was doing laundry. I was having a good time, and I forgot about it. And I told the audience, I honestly said I'd rather be doing laundry than be here. And then I proceeded to give one of the most personable shows ever. It was actually quite good. I got some compliments on that. So I learned that my style is better as a stream of consciousness. One association to the next association. And it seemed like I got more people calling in to tell me that I was better than the guy that I actually admire the most, who's still broadcasting today. Anyway, I was in error about women's right to vote not being in the Constitution. Well, it's not in the Constitution, but it is in the amendments. And it's in, what I claimed was that men didn't have the right to vote, that it's nowhere in the Constitution. And it's not in the Bill of Rights, by the way. Not in the first 10 amendments. Not in the first 12 amendments or the original 13th Amendment. But it is in the 14th Amendment. And it was Barry Young, who I admired quite a bit. He had a good sense of humor. He was a good talk radio show host. I think I liked Charles better, Goyette. I think he was better, but he was not going to hawk for the war, so they got rid of him and got him off the radio because they had to support the Mockingbird CIA media and sell you on that war. They couldn't have anybody out there that wasn't going to be jingoistic about it. And so they brought in a couple of, I'll call them jackasses, because that's what I thought of them, to sell the war to us. They're trying to sell another war to us now. They're going to make this happen no matter what. I don't know if most of us are for it. I don't think we are. I'm not out there, traveling right now and mingling with the folks, so I don't know what the public at large thinks. Now, I admire Justice Clarence Thomas because he's got a wonderful motorhome. And in the summertime, when the Supreme Court's off, he and his wife, he's got a white wife, okay? He and his wife go off in their Prevost and park among us in regular RV parks, and apparently he doesn't wear no damn black robe around us, and I guess he doesn't even tell us who he is. He just hangs out around with us, and I think he checks the pulse of the nation on that. And I admire him for that. I look forward to the day when I got him for a neighbor in an RV park somewhere. Probably will never happen, but if it does, I'll be very taken back, and I will know who he is. And I don't think most people that run into him know who he is, which is probably the best thing. I remember the Justice Clarence Thomas hearings, whether or not they were going to put him on the Supreme Court. And I remember a young, rather brash black man. Well, I was very young at the time, and he was pretty young. And that's what amazed me about him, was he had a lot of youth and vigor. Vim, I guess is the word. He had a lot of energy about him. And he kind of scared me when he went toe-to-toe. And he used the term high-tech lynching. And he had the balls to go toe-to-toe with them. And they were trying to get him to withdraw. And I remember Anita Hill making those false allegations. Pubic hairs left on Coke cans and crap. I mean, it was just ugly, ugly stuff that they come up with. And by the way, Anita Hill's attorney was later Big Sister, later Governor of Arizona, Janet Napolitano. What a work of art she is. She is a tough bird, I will say that. Double mastectomy and goes out there like she's got no pain at all and runs for office. Now, I got to tell you, that's one tough bird. I mean, I couldn't imagine myself doing something like that, to be honest with you. But she's super liberal, and they did their best to go after Clarence Thomas by lying. I think Anita Hill should be tried for her crime, to be honest with you. Oh, and there's another woman that should be tried for her crime as well. Blasey Ford. What was her first name? Something Blasey Ford. By the way, she was chosen because her dad had some sort of protection as I guess like an ambassador or part of the State Department, and somehow that protection from prosecution was afforded her. She obviously lied to the country while testifying in the Congress. And, that was the Justice Kavanaugh hearing. I was very upset with Senator Murkowski. I mean, she got berated in the hall by, who was it? One of those California women, maybe it was Pelosi. No, it wasn't Pelosi. It would have been, Feinstein. Feinstein's a work of art. She's been a CHICOM agent for a long time. Her driver's been with her for at least 20 years. No problems with that, not even a slap on the hand. It's okay for a senator to be a CHICOM agent, like that guy that had a love affair, did a honeypot with a CHICOM agent that they made sure to rush out of the country so she would be protected. Turned out she was a CHICOM officer in their military. And he's still in office. on the Intelligence Committee. I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, I was upset with Murkowski, and I let her know. I let her have it. And I left a message telling her I didn't appreciate the fact that she was voting with her vagina. I said that. Yes, I did. She wrote a letter to me and sent it by email, and I never did get it. I think it was to that. Maybe it was something else. But she had to send a letter. If I write a letter, it's a physical letter. And I expect a physical letter back. She sent something by email, and my computers had gone down, and I didn't have service. Probably recovering from the accident. I never got the letter. Never read it. Anyway, there was good reason, I believe, to go after Justice Kavanaugh. And that was that he was somehow part and parcel to the Patriot Act. And in my opinion, anyone who supported the Patriot Act, anyone who authored it, who provided the technical expertise, which is what I heard Kavanaugh did, shouldn't even have a damn license to practice law. As far as I'm concerned, that's a treasonous act. And why go after the man on made-up crimes when you could go after him for the fact that he curtailed our freedoms? Or the Patriot Act did do that, which is still the law of the land. It's a violation. In order to get it passed, they had to pull a false flag. Yes, 9/11 was a false flag. You did not know that? Okay. I met a fellow who was a contractor off the books for the CIA. And I asked him his opinion. And he told me it was part inside and part outside. It could not have been done without inside help. And it was too big. It was part outside. In his opinion, it was all executed on a laptop computer with somebody probably up in Canada. That's what he told me. And that's all I can tell you. I couldn't tell you who he was at all. I don't remember him very well. He also told me that the trawlers from which the missiles were supposedly launched, that was hijacked from Canada. He told me a little bit about that. And by the way, Flight 800 was a toll-free method to put a lot of things into place which deprived us of our rights. That was done within 24 hours. And it looks like it was actually done by one of our own missiles. So I don't know. I do know that there was a wonderful, wonderful Democrat congressman. Don't remember his name offhand, but he was on Flight 007, to Korea. And the CIA put a beacon on a mountain to misguide the whole airplane. And so it would go into North Korea where the Chi-Com communist MiGs shot down the whole commercial aircraft in order to kill the one congressman because he was brilliant, he was honest, and he was going to be president, and they couldn't have him for president. You see, we're ruled by murderers and thieves. If anybody even looks like they're going to save the country or do the right thing, they'll take them out. They won't take the chance. They've been doing it the whole time. And in case you're wondering, you want examples of murderers? Go read the transfer agreement. Two different groups of Jews vying to represent Judaism as a whole to Adolf Hitler to make a deal with Hitler. And one group was a good group, and the other group was a bad group. And to get power and to end the competition, the bad group murdered the good group. They didn't just kill one of them, they killed a bunch of them. Go read it. It's all documented by Edwin Black, who's Jewish himself. It's a rather stoic book in that it's kind of boring to read. I had to start it again. It was just so boring. But actually, it's quite good in the fact that it is boring because it is pretty much an account. And if you read between the lines, you get a really good flavor for what was going on. So Judaism as a whole was hijacked by a group of evil ones inside of it. Now, if you want some other proof of that, go get a book. William Guy Carr, Admiral William Guy Carr, Canadian, began his investigation in 1911. Model 1911 pistol, handgun, invented by Browning, John Browning, the 45 ACP. It's easy to remember that. He was approached to join in with these groups that were infiltrating the rest of us, and they flow freely among us today. A lot of them are in Hollywood or come out of Hollywood or are invested in that. Who was that great senator? That senator was right. McCarthy, McCarthyism. He was right. He was right all along. He deserves to be vindicated. There needs to be a life-size bronze statue of him erected in the new Capitol. Yeah, let's have a new Capitol. That Capitol in D.C. is evil as hell. Even the architecture's got a lot of evil stuff in it. We ought to wall that thing off, maybe make it a museum, or better yet, make it a prison camp. Keep those senators, keep those errant senators and congressmen, those traitors to the country, in there. Not let anyone out, not let anything in. Let them eat each other. They sure as hell have been eating on us long enough. I'm on a bit of a rant, okay. Indulge me just a little bit. We appear to have been set up all the way around. The evil ones have been working on us for not just decades, but at this point, centuries. You need to go back. And then as far as the Republic goes and losing it, we probably were good the first 7 years, and thereafter things went to hell in a handbasket, slowly and steadily deteriorated. So I say we go for the Great Reset here. My strategic intervention. Steal this idea. Don't even bother mentioning me. I don't need the credit. I don't want the credit. I want to see it implemented, though. We return to the original 13th Amendment, make all other amendments null and void. We chop this federal government down. Anything that's superfluous, anything that's just feel good, right? That's not. And we limit the government to what that Constitution limited the government to. We get rid of some of this interstate commercial code. We honor property rights once again. If you're a man and you're running a company, you own the company. Why can't you run it the way you want? Why does the federal government have to tell you how to manage your own business? What's in your best interest? No. We don't have property rights in our land anymore. You don't own a damn thing. They give you a certificate of title. They don't give you even a title. And by the way, we used to have patented land. That's what we were supposed to have. Patented land could not be taxed. It could not be taken from you. It could not be attached. You had rights to it that were rock solid. You owned everything above it. You owned all the mineral rights in it. You had total rights to patented land. And that came to you from my family in England. The county of Kent was the only county in which there was a loyal title. All the other counties, the king would give you property, title. Okay, fine. However, it wasn't a loyal. You could be, your property could be taken back by the king at any time, but not in the county of Kent. We were big enough and strong enough, and we had our own army, and we served the king well enough that somehow we were given that particular right in the Kent County, the county of Kent in England. I've never been there. I'd love to visit it sometime. And so if you want to know where I got that from, again, it's from The Fruit of a Poisonous Tree, that nice blue-covered paperback book. Amazon didn't carry it for quite a while. I had to go get it off Abe Books when I bought it. Now Amazon's got it, so you can get it. It's one of the most important books ever written. Probably up there in the top 10. Okay? You need to get that book and read it and free yourself. Now, back to the 14th Amendment. I'm reading through it, thinking, I'm going to But I am going to put up the other video, and I'm going to call it part 1, and this is part 2. I'm thinking that it made blacks, Negroes, 2/3 of a man, because the purpose of it was to limit the power of the South so that they wouldn't get too many congressmen. You know, Congress is apportioned. You get congressmen for the number of people that are represented, unlike the senators who represent the state government, so you only get 2 of those. And they're supposed to come from your state legislatures. That's the way it was before the 17th Amendment, and the state could fire them in an instant if they failed to vote on legislation the way the state government wanted. So that's why you don't have a republic. You want a republic? You get rid of those senators that are in office today. You send them packing. And I think you take it a step further. You tell the states you're going to pay the salary and benefits you deem appropriate for those that are representing your state government. Yeah, you get the check. Maybe it should be signed by both the governor and the treasurer of the state, and so they know who they're beholding to. You vote the wrong way, you're going to be a jackass, a maverick, or whatever you want to call it. Those guys back home in the state legislature fire your ass. You come home from Washington, D.C., and you finish the term of the seat to which you were elected by the local people in the state. Yeah, we need to go back to a constitutional republic. And the 17th Amendment is sure as hell unconstitutional. I thought the 14th Amendment created a citizen of the United States as opposed to being a citizen of your state. And before that time, we were considered citizens of our states. You read about the founders, the early patriots, the early guys in history. They weren't called a United States citizen. They were considered Americans, not United States citizens. They were Americans, and they were considered citizens of their states. My God, even Bowie, who died in Texas, was always known as the great citizen from the state of Kentucky. But when I was reading the 14th Amendment, trying to find that wordage, it wasn't apparent. It turns out that it's further in the text, and that the 14th Amendment allowed for state citizenship to continue. Now, in case you're wondering, it's still okay for you to declare yourself a citizen of the state. As a matter of fact, that's what you want to do, because then when you become a landed citizen, you're no longer subject to their maritime admiralty law. But you have to know what you're doing, and I have to admit, I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't done it yet. I've started on that path a few times, but I also figure I have taken advantage of this country in so many ways that I do want to repay the nation. I love my country. You know we're in trouble. You know you're in trouble. So the 14th Amendment did create a United States citizen, and that's what they gave to citizenship to the blacks. And so it enslaved us all, because we are now under maritime admiralty law. They own us. They use our birth certificates. It's very complicated. I would love to be able to say I understand it, but I don't. I do know that there were some incredible organizations funded a long time ago, and we don't even know about them and what they do. So things are held in trust for us, and there's ways to get out of debt. When they bankrupted us and took away our money, they had to provide a way for us to take care of our debts. Anyway, I don't want to be one of those that tries to bring that to you because I don't understand it well enough. But I can tell you this. We need to go back to declare our state citizenship. landed citizens and get our constitutional rights back. Then you won't be underneath these weird corporate things that pose as courts across the country. They did a real bang-up job deceiving us and screwing us over and defrauding us of everything. They have stolen it all. They own it all, including you and me. I hope I'm making sense. I received a phone call, and I got a message up there as I was recording this telling me if I took the call, the recording would stop. I thought maybe it might restart where I was at, and it doesn't do that. I need somebody to give me some lessons on these cell phones today. I want you to think about the fact that when you fill out any form, they always tell us based upon penalty of perjury. And whenever you see that, they have to tell you the truth on that form so that they can screw you up. Because they want us all to be trapped in their system. And we have to ignore the central federal government. And your state governments are also corporate governments. We need to establish organic governments once again. If we did it at the state level, that would be best. Then we could take away this jurisdiction that the Washington District of Criminals has over us. Am I making sense? I hope I am. The 13th Amendment was the law of the land. We need to go back to it, and we need to take it a couple of steps further. Anyone who has dual citizenship, we need to consider taking it away. And not only that, I don't think we give them a choice. Especially when it comes to Israeli dual citizenship. I think we strip them of any and all citizenship in these states, in the several states, and in the United States, and we kick them out. They have dual loyalty. We cannot trust them. They have taken over the nation from within. No one with dual citizenship from any country, even our neighbors in Canada, should have a position in the United States government, in the bureaucracy. Certainly, they should never hold elected office. That should disbar them from holding elected office. Also, there's no birthright citizenship before the 14th Amendment. And it was not clarified, and it has not been challenged in court. I got that from Senator John Kyle. So there are laws about tourist citizenship against it. So if you're a tourist in the country and you have a baby born to you, it's not a citizenship of the country here. There are laws specifically against that. So what I'm getting at is that all of these illegals that have been in the country illegally should not be granted citizenship. That needs to be challenged in the courts. It's never been disputed there. It needs to be taken to the courts, and they need to be stripped of their citizenship, and they need to go home. I don't give a damn about your dreamers. Your parents committed a crime being here. I think we kick them out. We invite them to leave. Now, I think we make it a federal felony to be inside the country. And a requirement of being in the country illegally and getting caught is that you are barred from entry forever. Boy, they'll be running for that border because they want to be able to come back. But I think we just have to do that, and they go. The other thing is that we got a lot of men that need some work right now. My God, put a bounty on them. No, please don't misunderstand. I'm not saying scalp them. You know, what the king did to us during the Revolutionary War, where he put a treble bounty on long blonde hair, a double bounty on all other colors of hair, long hair scalps, and a regular bounty on short scalp of a man. It's what they gave the Indians in order to incentivize the genociding of the Americans. A genociding that continues today, in case you haven't figured it out. Most of you who tuned in here already know that sort of thing and already know what's going on. But I'm going to tell you, you don't know that they are killing us every which way possible, including with RFI, radio frequency interference. You need to understand that it is an electric universe. And when we say that, we really mean it. The electricity going through the whole universe is holding this whole thing together. And you can look at the sun, and certainly you can look at it from a chemical perspective, the chemistry of it. And that's a valid perspective. It's helpful, it's useful. But the fact is, it's better regarded for the electrical properties of it and the electricity that goes through our solar system from it that controls things to a very large extent. And the electricity that goes through the entire Milky Way, that's important as well. And in case you're wondering, you may be regarded as even a biomechanical myth, if you will, a construct. Certainly we have got chemistry to us. But the fact is that that's not the soul. And when you pass, your body, your chemistry, all that goes away. You don't keep that. You leave that. You discard that. Your soul is electrical, and it continues on. If you're lucky, if you're blessed, and then you get judged at a point. And my hunkin' suspicion is that's the point where the electrical component gets destroyed or gets rewarded. I'm going to call this to a close. This is part 2. I am going to entitle this probably the 14th Amendment in terms of restoring our republic. And I will entitle the first one that as well. So it's going to be 2 parts today. So it's going to be, I might as well call this number 14 and number 15. Covered the 15th Amendment slightly, but not very much. I don't even remember what it's about, to be honest with you. I'd have to look it up. I lost my little pamphlet. I was getting pamphlets of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence from Galco whenever I bought some leather from them. It had a nice color cover on it, and I appreciate the fact they put it in it. But then there's another pamphlet that looks kind of like a postage stamp. It's got red, white, and blue on it, white cover primarily. And that was printed up in Phoenix, Arizona. They printed up that thing by the thousands. And that's got a better copy, in my opinion. And what makes it better is there's an asterisk on the 13th Amendment. The one that Abraham Lincoln gave us, stuck us with. And there's a footnote on it. And that's important because you need to know that that's where the variance occurs. That's where they threw us off, thereby depriving us of our inheritance, of our heritage. So it is actually noted in that version, and there's good reason for it because that's where they screwed us. That's where Abraham Lincoln put the screws to us, because he was not merely an attorney, he was a member of the Bar Association, which was stripped of any and all citizenship in these several states. Why were they stripped? Because they were loyal to the crown. The British accreditation regency rules over America for the king or for the queen, who's ever up there at the time. But that's what their purpose was. They infiltrated us. They've thrown us off from our original rights, our original Constitution. They have misled us. Now, the number one profession, the highest paid profession, has been killing us for quite a while. They were killing us at a rate of 400,000 per year medical errors, back in good times before all of this pandemic stuff, quote. Now, it's probably a lot more, 1 million more per year than what it was then. And it's going to accelerate from here. And they insist upon getting paid 2.5 what the next highest paid profession gets, which are the attorneys. And then after that, I think it's probably the dentist. And then after that, the psychologist. And the psychologists have screwed us as well. They have pushed the liberalism. They have destroyed the culture. They've done the best they can to take apart the families. That's our psychologists today. Really bad profession. If you look at the symbols for it, you'll see the symbol psi, Greek letter. Looks like a damn trident. Pitchfork. Neptune, god of the underworld, god of the sea. We manage the plantation for the owners of it. Who owns this place? Satan, the prince of the air, the devil, and his children. They're running it today. This is about hell on earth. And they're going to make it worse if they can get away with it. They're going to get away with it until you do what I say you do. You don't just buy this thing, you sit on your ass and you read it. All of our founders were educated on this book. This was their prime reader. Okay? This is the proper name version of the King James Bible, which I didn't have anything to do with, but I'm getting more to do with it. In case you're wondering, the original King James of 1611 was overseen and produced by a man who should have been known in the last name Kent, but they had to hide his identity, because if they had called him a Kent, surely it would have been discovered that his mother was the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth, the Elizabethan era, which I sometimes say error. The Queen Mother had 2 boys by the same Kent, the same man. And in case you're wondering, William Shakespeare was a horse handler on the Kent estate. He was illiterate. He couldn't read or write. There were only 4 examples of his handwriting in existence. He was the front guy until they didn't need him anymore. And then they murdered him using arsenic in his beer. And by the way, they put up the second most famous playwright at the time to do the job. Must have taken him to the tavern and bought him a beer and put a little arsenic in the old Sots beer. What was the name of that guy? Johnson. I think it was Ben Jonson. I'm not sure. Don't hold me to it. Look it up. Now, what you need to understand, and this, if you held on this long, is the most important thing. But do like this video. Do it right now. Do it right now. And share it. And subscribe. Because what I'm going to tell you is very profound, and I'm losing it. It's such a wonderful, brilliant thought. The fact is that all the world is a stage. They're practicing magic on us. Black magic. They're deceiving us. Once you realize that that shit show in Washington, D.C. is nothing but the biggest show on earth, and it's corrupt as hell, then you'll get a better perspective as to what's going on. And they have the best actors in the world. They're real players. And they pretend that they're enemies, that they're against each other. But they really aren't. They're joined at the hip. They're 2 wings of the same dirty bird. And their purpose is to divide you or me, you and me, to divide us, to conquer us, to get us angry at each other, to get us to fight each other. Yes, that's what they're all about. They want to reduce us to the most barbaric state possible. And that's what they did in the gulags in Russia. They killed a lot of people. They didn't use guns. They used knives. Why knives? Because the blood flowed more, and they liked that. They liked playing in the blood. And while they were butchering those people over there, they'd have orgies. The guards, the male and female guards, would have sex to that horrible stuff that was going on over there. They're horrible people. Now, you go to pawns in the game, and you will see, and you go to the transfer agreement, and you will see that there were good Jews and bad Jews. And you will see that Sir William Guy Carr, Admiral William Guy Carr, Naval Intelligence in the Canadian Navy, and there are recorded videos of him here on YouTube, he will tell you that the Jews have been used. He will tell you they've been abused and misused and treated horribly. And I have to agree with him. Nevertheless, he points out the two spears of the sword that are used against us right now, the two spears. One of those, world revolution, communism, the Bolsheviks, launched from Manhattan by the false Jews, the international bankers, Adams Schiff's family, caused World War I. Went in to see President Taft, and when President Taft didn't get what he wanted, which was to restrict all visas for Russia, he announced it on the way out, "Gentlemen, this means war." Yes. Yes. Jacob Schiff caused that war and went after the Tsar's family and had them murdered. And then the other part of it was Zionism. And Zionism is a really weird thing. And back in the 1800s is when they launched that stuff. And it was so bad that even the guy that founded it, when he deviated from their really bad courses because it was just too evil, they got rid of his ass as fast as they could. They used him and cast him aside. Zionism is, again, Jews behind it. But I have to point out, it's the false ones. Who are the false ones? They're the sons of Cain. Tells the whole story in here. This is the battle between good and evil. So you're stuck in it. You're drafted. You're a pawn in it. You're a player in it, whether you like it or not. I don't like it. But I know my role. Yeah, I guess it is a play, isn't it? Because here I am using the term role. You need to understand that almost everybody in D.C. is corrupt as hell. And we live in what I call a target-rich environment. There are very few, but there are some honorable congressmen, congresswomen, senators. But they are very few and far between. They've let this corruption go on long enough. They've let this deception go on too far. It says in the Bible that the man who deceived the world will be paraded out for all of us to see and marvel at and look at him and say, is this the man who deceived the world? The folks in Washington, D.C. get along really good together. They know that we are the target. They are doing their best to divide us and conquer us and get us at each other's throats. And of course, we do a pretty good job of that. I don't think we should be doing that. I think we need to unite in cutting this central federal communist beast system government that enslaves us all down in size. Whittle it down. Go at it slowly. Reverse engineer it. Whatever branch of government, whatever part of the bureaucracy that was created most recently, get rid of it first and peel it back. And as far as you boys and girls out there, and this is not intended for, for children, as far as your children go, they're going to have a lot of work to do. Can you imagine what it's going to be like to publish the truth about the history? And we don't even have just the history of our nation to publish about. We've got the history of the whole world to discover. The Earth ages are rather brief. They're only about 12,000 years long, and we are at the end of one. I've gone long. I hope you'll appreciate the show. I do want to thank those of you who have purchased the Bible. I'm going to thank the gentleman who gave me the gift. Okay, it's appreciated. Don't really want to encourage that, to be honest with you. I encourage comments. If you can correct me and guide me, far out. Great. Okay, I grew up at the end of the hippie era, so I got to see that. But I also grew up at during the golden era of the 50s. I got to see what this country was like. These children have no idea of how wonderful it was and what it was about and how far away we are from our roots. Never did I think we would get this far. But rather than send me gifts, buy my Bibles, get it to others. If you're interested in the apocryphal books, a modern English translation of it, let this publisher know, and we'll get on it. I need about 3,000 to commit in order to just begin to do it at all. If I get 5,000 to commit, then we can do it in a real big way, the way the publisher and I come to a wonderful understanding on how to do that. And I'm looking forward to that. You need those extra 14 books. You can call the publisher and order Bibles. You can also go online at the link below and you'll hit a drop-down tab. There's 5 different formats that you can buy. Those are the cheapest. That's the cheapest that we can get. You can get those. That's what I've been told. He's a man of his word. He's taking good care of me. That's all I can tell you. He also came up with the idea that he would mark the end price 77 cents. Thereby, he would know that I get credit for that. So do me that favor. I would appreciate that. I want to earn my stipend. I want to earn my way, but I want to give you more value than you give me. I would love to give you your republic back. I don't have the power, but together we might be able to do this and pull it off without firing a shot. We'll probably have to shoot some in self-defense, but hopefully we won't have to go in utter rebellion because Yahweh is using the evil ones. You got to remember they're working for him and they don't know it. They're going to find out. So they've been given license to sift us, but clearly they've exceeded their license. May Yahweh bless our republic. May Creator Father God bless America once again. May America bless Yahweh. May America be good